Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
Five people were killed and tens of others were injured by a bomb explosion at the entrance of a mosque in the Khalis village northeast of Baghdad as worshippers were leaving after performing the Friday prayers. 7 Iraqis were killed, including a policeman, and 3 others were injured in separate attacks in Baghdad. 2 police officers were killed by an attack targeting their security patrol in the area of Yarmouk. In northeast Iraq, near the area of Bunuk, police found 7 unidentified bodies which showed signs of torture.
The bloody events in Iraq have not stopped. In the village of Khalis in the Diyala province, northeast of Baghdad, 5 Iraqis were killed and tens of others were injured when a bomb exploded in the entrance of the Sa'd bin Waqqas mosque. It exploded as worshippers were leaving the mosque after performing their Friday prayers. The worshippers carried the body of the dead to pray over them. The injured were transferred to Baquba General Hospital.
1 hour before the prayers, an American unit stopped across the street. As people were about to leave, the bomb exploded in their faces.
4 workers were killed from the Sabah bakery in the Sayadiya neighborhood in Baghdad, which is mainly Sunni. Armed assailants came to the site and carried out the killing. Before escaping, they left behind a box inside. When the police patrol came, an officer opened the box and it exploded in his face, killing him and injuring another officer. A suicide bomber detonated his car in the suburb of Fallujah, west of Baghdad. He targeted a United States Army patrol that included 4 personnel carrier vehicles. 1 vehicle was destroyed on the Jadid Road area in Fallujah, another was set on fire and the people inside were injured. United States forces closed off the area and set up checkpoints.
He came to Fallujah to the Jadid area and blew up his booby-trapped car next to the American cars, burning one of them.
The Denmark Ministry of Defense confirmed that 1 Danish soldier was killed and another was injured when their patrol was hit by a bomb near the city of Basra. The Danish Prime Minister, who is currently at a European Union meeting in Brussels, described the act as cowardly.
We condemn that. We condemn the act and regret that it happened. However, I clarified that we will remain in Iraq to help Iraqis to achieve freedom, peace, and happiness.
Denmark has deployed 530 soldiers in southern Iraq under the British command. 3 Danish soldiers have died since the start of the United States occupation of Iraq in 2003.
Three years after the multinational forces' presence in Iraq, the League of Arab States has failed to come up with a solution for the thorny Iraqi issue. The Iraqi Reconciliation Conference in Cairo last October called for the withdrawal of the coalition forces from Iraq, but has postponed the National Reconciliation Initiative until the next Iraqi government is formed. Meanwhile, several members of the Arab League refused an American request to deploy Arab armies in Iraq to replace the 230,000 American soldiers. The League of Arab States has a difficult task in front of it. For several months, it has been trying to reconcile between Iraq's different factions. Meanwhile, the member states are reluctant to deploy their forces in Iraq as Washington requested. In October of this year, the Arab League held a meeting in Cairo to accompany the Iraqi Reconciliation Conference that many of Iraq's factions attended. The conference provided a platform for different Iraqi political forces to dialogue and paved the way for reconciliation. This reconciliation meeting was initially scheduled to take place next month in Baghdad. However, it was postponed until next June without specifying a date as they await the formation of the new government, which has been the subject of heated debate between the different parliamentary factions. Some political analysts believe the reconciliation initiative made by the Arab League to be ineffective because the differences between Iraq's factions are too great and will not be solved in a meeting or two. For his part, the Secretary General of the Arab League, Amr Moussa, said that he realized the difficulty of the task in front of him, cautioning not to have high expectations. Political science professor Mustafa Sayed at the American University in Cairo said that Arab countries have practically no role in Iraq because the Iraqis themselves refuse their involvement. Nonetheless, the United States wants Arab countries to play a role with regard to security in Iraq and has asked some of them to send their troops to prepare for the withdrawal of 230,000 American soldiers. During U.S. Vice President Dick Cheney's visit to Cairo last January, Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak diplomatically refused a request to deploy Egyptian troops to Iraq after consulting with his political advisors. A spokesperson for President Mubarak maintained that Egypt never sends its troops to foreign lands except in the framework of a United Nations agreement. However, other Arab countries are worried about possible civil unrest in Iraq, which may have a negative impact on them, while standing on the sidelines with their hands tied.
Iran's foreign minister, in separate phone conversations Friday with his Chinese and Russian counterparts, elaborated Iran's nuclear stance. Manouchehr Mottaki hailed China and Russia for their stance they have taken over Iran's nuclear case and said the U.S. attempt in turning Iran's peaceful nuclear activities into an action that jeopardizes security is only the country's effort to cover up its defeats in the crisis Washington itself has brought about. Chinese and Russian foreign ministers in turn stressed resolution of Iran's nuclear case at the IAEA while opposing politicizing the case. Syrian First Vice-President Al-Shara has just arrived in Tehran Friday afternoon. Upon arrival, Shara told reporters he is to submit Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's message to President Ahmadinejad. Shara is also to meet Iranian officials for talks over bilateral, regional and international issues. Shara's trip to Iran follows his visit to Egypt and Saudi Arabia. While in Cairo, Syrian Vice President met the Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak to review regional developments. Following the deadlock the 5 members of the UN Security Council faced Thursday in releasing a resolution on Iran's nuclear issue, 4 ministers of the 5 members got on the phone in an effort to break the impasse. After 2 weeks of haggling, Britain, France and the United States have been unable to get Russia and China's support, the other 2 veto-holding Security Council nations, on a draft statement they had proposed. Russia and China have refused imposition of any sanctions on Iran, saying Iran's nuclear issue should be discussed at the IAEA. U.S. Ambassador to Iraq says Iran is signaling its support for the nascent democracy in Iraq while behind the scenes backing the country's militias and insurgent groups. Zalmay Khalilzad, in an interview with the Washington Post Friday, repeated once again accusations made recently by top U.S. officials about Iran's covert involvement in Iraq's insurgency at a time when it has offered to meet with the United States to discuss stabilizing its troubled neighbor. This is while head of the Supreme Council for Islamic Revolution in Iraq, Abdul Aziz Hakim, asked Iran to start talks with the U.S. as part of efforts to solve problems of Iraq. Iran has not rejected the offer. And Secretary General of the Arab League, Amr Moussa, in reaction to Tehran-Washington talks, rejected any negotiation in the absence of Arab countries between Iran and the U.S. aiming to build the future of Iraq. Moussa made the remark ahead of a key two-day gathering in Khartoum, Sudan, due next Tuesday, saying the League will continue its efforts to hold a conference on national Iraqi solidarity. Senior officials in Baghdad, including Abdulaziz Hakim and Jalal Talabani, had earlier called on Tehran to open talks with Washington over Baghdad. In Iraq, hundreds of Shiites staged a protest rally in Baghdad after Friday prayers. Demonstrators flatly condemned Wednesday's killing of pilgrims in the capital. 15 Iraqis were returning from a religious ceremony in Karbala, marking 40 days after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein when they were attacked by gunmen west of the capital. And following the news of missile attacks on the holy city of Karbala and its suburb on the eve of the Shiite festival of Arba'in, the holy city's provincial governor blamed the heinous attack on the U.S. forces. He told reporters on Friday the missiles were fired from Musayyib district, where the American force has imposed a security blanket. He further said American forces failed in their promises to provide a 5-day air cover in the Karbala province.
استعدادا للقمة العربية 18 والتي تسبقها اجتماعات وزراء الخارجية.
Arab foreign ministers started gathering in Khartoum in preparation for the 18th Arab League summit, which will be held on the 28th and 29th of March.
من الشهر الحالي.
Arab foreign ministers will start their meetings tomorrow in preparation for the 18th Arab League summit, which will be held in Sudan on the 28th and 29th of March. A number of Arab foreign ministers have already arrived to Sudan, including the Yemeni foreign minister Abu Bakr Abdullah al-Gurbi and the Algerian foreign minister Abdulaziz Bul Khadim and the Iraqi foreign minister Bushar Zubairi. The Sudanese foreign minister As-Sammani al-Wasila welcomed them. Several ministers from the Political and Economic Council of the Arab League praised the Sudanese government's development initiative in Sudan. This comes after their visit to the northern province today to oversee the Merawi Dam construction, which is considered one of the largest hydropower projects in the Arab world. The Arab League delegation paid a visit to the site of the Merawi Dam project, accompanied by Minister of Finance Zubair Ahmed Hassan, Osama Abdullah, the Executive Director of the dam's construction sector, and several other government officials. They were met at Al-Merawi airport by the governor of the northern province, Marghani Saleh, and members of his government. Their visit comes in the framework of a program set up by the Arab Fund for Economic and Social Development to oversee the project. The dam project, which is estimated at $1.9 billion, is also being financed by several other Arab funds in investments worth $800 million.
We congratulate the people of Sudan and the government on this grand project. To any person standing in front of it, the project provides a sense of purpose and better horizons for the people.
This is a massive project. It will provide a major economic boost to northern Sudan. Like President Bashir has said, this is the project of the century.
We are very pleased with this great accomplishment. It was made by the will of the Sudanese people and shows strong leadership that can undertake this kind of initiative. This also goes to show that when Arab efforts and capabilities unite, a lot can be accomplished to benefit the Arab world and all humanity. I think we need to create this kind of economic and human development in the Arab world.
The project is made up of several parts to include Bayara, Karima Merawi Bridge, and the airport. It aims to generate 1,250 megawatts of electricity, which will help fulfill the energy needs of the country, in addition to protecting the land from the Nile floods.
We are very pleased with this project. It has helped bring together and combine the efforts of the people of Sudan and those of their Arab brethren. This project is a collaborative effort that shows the benefit of cooperation in the Arab world at its best.
We chose this location for the Mirawi Dam project to show an example of a successful Arab venture and ability to cooperate through various regional Arab funds. This is a success for Arab unity and the League of Arab States.
The Mirawi Dam is projected to turn Sudan from a country that suffers from lack of sufficient electricity to one that will become far more productive.
توعدت سرايا القدس الجناح العسكري لحركة الجهاد الإسلامي إسرائيل.
The Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, vowed to retaliate against Israel for the martyrdom of two of its activists by an Israeli military strike near Gaza. A spokesman for the Jerusalem Brigades said that the Islamic Jihad movement will not leave Hamas to face Israel alone. He defended the decision of the Islamic Jihad to support Hamas's political position in refusing to recognize the PLO as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. Hamas's refusal to recognize the PLO as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people has created a dilemma for the executive committee of the PLO. Hamas also refuses to recognize the Declaration of Independence that was made in Algeria by the PLO in 1998 because it recognizes Israel. The Islamic Jihad movement rushed to declare its support for Hamas's position, despite international pressure on the Palestinians to recognize Israel.
We want to stand with Hamas in the face of local, regional, and international pressure to recognize Israel and give up the right to resist occupation. We in the Islamic Jihad movement feel that we should stand with our brothers in Hamas.
A similar position was taken by the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, which was about to join the Hamas-led government. The Popular Front announced that it will support Hamas, despite some differences over its political program. It supports Hamas's position of rejecting previous agreements and commitments.
Although we do not agree with all of Hamas's programs, we will stand with them in confronting this pressure and blackmail. The message is shared by a large segment of our Palestinian people. We reject this pressure and we stand united.
Some Palestinians believe that acknowledging the legitimacy of the executive committee of the PLO is important because it led to the creation of the Palestinian Authority. Others believe that the executive committee is no longer legitimate and that pressuring Hamas to recognize the PLO is only intended to make Hamas's government fail. Observers believe that a middle road solution should be reached without recognizing Israel unless it recognizes the rights of the Palestinian people and ends its military escalation. This is the funeral procession of the activists from the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad. They were martyred when a group of 3 people were targeted by missiles as they were trying to plant an explosive device near the Kitzufim crossing point along the Gaza-Israeli borderline.
It's just 4 days before Israelis go to the polls to elect the 17th Knesset. One issue continuing to make headlines is that of future national borders. IBA's Eli Wogelernter has more.
4 days before Election Day, and one issue dominating the campaign is what will happen to Israel's borders. Indeed, that's the issue around which the Kadima Party was formed. Despite jabs from opposition leaders, acting Prime Minister Ehud Olmert maintains that a unilateral withdrawal is the only practical solution.
We want every part of the land of Israel. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that this country will remain forever a Jewish state in a democratic state, even if it forces us to make sometimes sacrifices and concessions which we don't do out of love.
The good leader Benjamin Netanyahu says giving up territory unilaterally will only encourage more terrorism. He charges that Omar is blind to the danger of continued withdrawal.
We have to stop the policies of unilateral disengagements for two reasons. One, because it gives them territory that they will use against us physically, and secondly, because it emboldens them to do more terror and more attacks. So this is one of the main differences between us and our political rivals.
While Labor's main platform focuses on socioeconomic issues, party leader Amir Peretz says that for political survival, Israel must make its own decisions when it comes to borders.
I will not agree to diplomatic impasse. It may take years for more responsible voices to emerge on the Palestinian side, but we will not be passive while we wait.
Finally, Avigdor Lieberman, head of Yisrael Beitenu, says that the only solution is a total separation between Jews and Arabs.
In Israel, we have double conflict. It's a national conflict, it's a religious conflict. And the only one solution can provide security and coexisting, separation between two nations.
Regardless of who wins on Tuesday, the issue of where and how to draw the final borders is likely to remain a contentious issue. Eli Wogelanter for IBA News.
The UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestinian Refugees warned that a security and humanitarian crisis is on the verge of happening. It also urged the European Union to give the new government, led by Hamas, a chance. This comes as Egypt sends the first emergency shipment to the Gaza Strip through the Kerem Shalom crossing in an effort to overcome the food shortage crisis that was caused when basic supplies ran out due to Israel's closure of the main crossings to the area.
International borders, even after they were demarcated by barbed wire and long walls, did not prevent Egypt in the past from supporting the Palestinian cause.
Due to the food crisis that the Palestinian people are now suffering from in the Gaza Strip, President Hosni Mubarak ordered an immediate shipment of goods and supplies to be sent to the people of Palestine. This is partly due to the close relationship between the Egyptian and the Palestinian people, and also in the spirit of neighborliness and universal brotherhood.
In the early hours of the morning on Wednesday, the first Egyptian transportation vehicle crossed Rafah, heading toward the Kerem Shalom crossing. The Minitar crossing between Israel and the Gaza Strip was reopened on Tuesday to transport goods, but only for a limited time due to what was described as possible attacks by the resistance movement.
I'm very happy that the Kerem Shalom Israel crossing, which is used to transport goods from outside into the Gaza Strip according to our agreement with Israel, is being reopened as a gift from the Egyptian government to the Palestinian Authority.
The Egyptian emergency shipments included 7,000 tons of flour, sugar, and rice that will be transported by 50 vehicles over a period of several days. The coming weeks will also witness Palestinian negotiations with Israel and the international bodies to end the crossing crisis.
There is a real crisis continuing in the Gaza Strip because of the crossing's closure. Egyptian aid is being provided, and we are hoping that it will be able to cross over. But Israel is putting obstacles in its way to force the Egyptians to use the crossings that are controlled by Israel. In any event, the problem persists, and we are thankful for this help. But the Gaza Strip is suffering a real humanitarian crisis.
The International Food Programme warned repeatedly of this crisis, which made Palestinian civilians suffer the consequences of the military occupation. The Israeli closures and cutting off food supplies from the Gaza Strip is not the first of its kind. It is very similar to the raid and destruction on the Jericho prison and the detaining of Ahmed Saadat and his comrades.
envoy for the implementation of Resolution 1559, Terry Road-Larson, hailed Lebanon's national dialogue, which he stressed stood out in a region dogged by conflict. On a visit to Beirut, Road-Larson called on the government to continue its quest to solve pending issues, which he said were all intertwined in the full implementation of Resolution 1559. Following talks at the Foreign Ministry this morning, the UN official met Justice Minister Sharrizit and later with MP Wali Jumblat at the Beirut residence of Telecommunication Minister Marwan Hamedi. Discussions focused on the need for Lebanon to obtain documents from Damascus, which prove that the Shabaa farms are Lebanese. He is meeting with House Speaker Nabih Berri and tomorrow will hold talks with Premier Fouad Sanyura. UN envoy Terry Road-Larson met Lebanese officials today and offered support for national talks aimed at forging a deal over Hezbollah that the Security Council wants disarmed. Road-Larson said after meeting Foreign Minister Fawzi Salloukh that it was up to Lebanon and Syria to reach an agreement over the ownership of the disputed Shabaa farms area. Whether on establishing the demarcation of borders or brotherly Lebanese-Syrian ties, Road-Larson said, quote, "It always takes two to tango," stressing that the international community would back any agreements made between Beirut and Damascus.
We are fully aware that there are land deeds which shows ownership to farmlands in the Shabaa farms, and this is of course very important. But this is not an issue predominantly for the UN, because, and here I emphasize, a border agreement cannot be done by the UN. It can only be done between two sovereign states, which means that it's now urgent for representatives of the government of Syria and the government of Lebanon to sit down and agree on that boundary.
For his part, Salloukh stressed that the blue line was drawn just as a line indicating Israel's withdrawal in 2000 from South Lebanon and not as a frontier. Salloukh also slammed continuous Israeli violation of Lebanese sovereignty and hailed the UN's role in the investigation probing Rafi Hariri's murder. Road-Larson also discussed the issue of Palestinians in Lebanon.
For the first time in history, I've been informed by the Foreign Minister today, there will be a team of ministers in Lebanon going to the camps to start a dialogue with the camps. This is remarkable. This is extremely possible. This is exactly the way things should be handled, through dialogue with all parties concerned. And again, I laud the Prime Minister and his cabinet for taking this initiative. It is very important, and it is fully in the spirit of Taif and 1559.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.
Is this the Iraq War you never see on American TV? Unfiltered, uncensored, unafraid to venture into uncharted territory? Now you can play an important role in keeping this Peabody Award-winning news digest on the air, delivering cutting-edge news from the Middle East. Become a member of the Mosaic Club today. From the basic membership to the producer circle, each level comes with unique gifts and privileges, including the Mosaic tote bag, and a weekly subscription to the Mosaic Intelligence Report, an e-letter highlighting the week's events in the region. Some members will receive a DVD of Occupied Minds, a journey into the heart of Israel and Palestine, or will recognize your important role by putting your name in the show credits. Some memberships include a tour of Link TV studios in San Francisco, invitations to special events, and lunch with Mosaic's producer. Join the Mosaic team. Help keep critical news from the Middle East on the air. Just log on to www.linktv.org/Mosaic Club to learn how you can join the Mosaic Club today.
This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. For a transcript of this program, to watch streaming video, or for instructions on how to receive Link TV in the United States, visit linktv.org.